Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys. Okay, welcome back to Safe Space with Cheyenne. I have two lovely guests today. We have Scott and Nancy. They are relationship coaches, but they also identify as adventure specialists. And if I was looking for a life coach, I think that this is the way that I would probably want to do it, because you get to go on adventure therapy retreats. If you go to their website, which I had a blast looking through all of their pictures and reading up on all of them, it will literally flash adventure, heart, and clarity through all of it. So welcome in, Scott and Nancy. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this. Wherever you really want to start the story, just to let us get to know you and how you evolved into these very powerful coaches, but very notarized powerful coaches. I know you guys have worked with celebrities, supermodels. You made an appearance on Tony Robbins, which, I mean, everybody wants that exposure, right? And to sit and kind of have their hat nodded from him. But before you were on this path, what really led you to this profession?
Yeah. So for me, I feel like things really came around full circle. Right now I'm in my 40s, but when I was going into college, I wanted to go into psychology, I thought at the time, right? And, as I got into it, I volunteered at different mental hospitals and, did different things in that. And it really didn't line up as my specialty back then. So I kind of deviated off and ended up in advertising and mass communications, which I still had to learn a lot about human behavior and how people thought. So I got into all of that, and I was kind of always that person in my friend circle and my family that people always came to for advice, that I kind of always had that outside perspective, and I wasn't afraid to kind of tell them what I heard or saw, the truth of things. Then it was probably about 10 years later, my mother passed away, and that's where I found Tony Robbins. And the way he spoke about life and thinking and all these things reminded me so much of my mom. It kind of was this feeling like I had come home again because I had lost her. And it helped me get through that loss of losing and grieving in a way that she probably would have coached me through it, because she was kind of like a coach before coaches were a thing. She used to let anybody and everybody come into our house that, we'd kind of sit around the kitchen table and talk about life and love and relationships. So finding Tony really helped me get through that. And then, of course, he talks about how you can help other people, and that led me to going, you know what, I think I want to help people in this realm. And then I kind of followed that path and started getting into it. Everything kind of came full circle in the sense where I look back and I'm weird, I'm kind of back where I started, but in a very different way and in a more powerful way, I feel like, where I can help more people in the way that really feels true to me. And then, meeting Scott, he was already doing that and helping people, and we combined forces, and it's really been this awesome godsend that, we just absolutely love doing, and, we have fun doing it. And I'll let you kind of take it from there, Scott.
Yeah.
You kind of come into the picture.
So for me, it really started in ninth grade. I cut out of a class. I grew up in a very challenging household in a very challenging environment. And I got in trouble in school quite a bit. And this one instance, a man named Howard Booth was a student activities advisor, and he caught me ditching classes. And he gave me two choices. He said, I could call your dad, or you can give me 2 Saturdays in the theater. And I was like, dude, I'll give you 10 Saturdays. Don't call my dad, right? That was the worst of the worst that would have happened. That led me to a 30-year career in Hollywood in film. And what I learned in that profession was human behavior and what it takes to build a character. And I found it so interesting. And so I took lots of classes about human behavior and acting. And on my time off, I would go in the woods. I was rock climber and hiking and rappelling down waterfalls. And I found a business that I could have on my time off, and I opened a rock climbing gym. And I would take people on guided trips. And I found that a week later, a month later, a year later, these folks would come back that I literally talked off the ledge. And they would come back and say, that conversation we had and you talking up that ledge and through my fear and through my tears allowed me to fill in the blank, right? Like whatever it was, whether it was getting a raise at their job or building a better relationship with their spouse or their kids or their family. And this light bulb went off and it was like, wow, I'm really helping people. Like, I'm not just taking them on this like trip. There's like some depth here. And I had been following Tony I have followed Tony Robbins for 25 years, probably. I have cassette tapes, if you know what a cassette tape is.
I do. I actually have a cassette tape collection because that's the only thing my husband's truck plays, and just picked up a couple 8 tracks and records the other day.
Wow.
Sweet. Well versed in the old school for sure.
I love it. And so I decided that I really wanted to do what Tony does, right? I was doing it on sort of my own level, and I wanted to level up from them. So I started to study and take, as many classes from different coaches and people that I could. Tony Robbins, Madonna's training was one of them. And I became a coach. And I was still in the film industry, and I met Nancy. And so here we are, 2 people coaching people. I would coach a person and take a movie. And I'd coach a couple people and I'd take a movie. And Nancy and I would sit down together and discuss, like, hey, I'm working with this person. What do you think? And again, that light bulb went off. It's like we could bring the male-female perspective to building healthy relationship because we hadn't had them until this point. Mm-hmm. We had failed relationship after failed relationship until we did the work on ourselves to build that super relationship with self, right? Mm-hmm. And that was sort of my coming home. It was coming home to self. And the being able to take that and utilize adventure to tie in the physiology along with that mindset was really the secret sauce I found to helping people. So that's really where the coaching realm sort of came from.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely know that you both had a background in wanting to help people, but I still like the rebelliousness of your story real quick and how someone they still saw the potential in you, right? So they didn't just go directly to, I'm going to call your father, I'll just let him deal with you, da-da-da-da. Because we have so much of that in our world. But those angels in human form that understand that being rough around the edge means so much more than just, oh, this kid needs discipline, this kid needs seen and needs to be put somewhere. You really got to hand it to that guy that was hey, you're going into theater. Because again, it led you down 30 years. But those rough around the edges stories are my favorite. I can identify with them in so many parts of my life where I was just oh, I'm a badass, or you can't tell me nothing. And at the end of the day, there was always that person who saw that greater potential in me, and they were able to really hold space for me releasing a lot of that. So for a beginner, just for lack of a better term, like someone who's looking to get into more guidance, and I'm not saying like sell yourself to me, but what are some key points that you've learned from your direct experience, like really facing those demons in yourself to realize like if we don't do the work on ourselves, we're not going to be able to help people as authentically and as deeply as we need to help them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, for me, it was doing that work to save my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was not only rough around the edges, I was rough in the mental state,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had drug abuse and alcohol abuse, and I had many angels in my life. And one of them actually stopped me from stepping off an 8-story building. And I literally had one foot in the air. And in this dark, gray world that I lived in at the time, I looked down and there was a woman in a red dress who really saw me. Like, I had not, there was only a few times in my life up to that point that I felt seen, that I felt that there were other human angels that actually saw who I was. And that moment really led me into the self-discovery of why am I here? Why am I in this space? And really starting to read and find out about human behavior in a deeper level really began a journey for me to not only help myself, because once I did that, it was like, oh my gosh, everybody has to know that they can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think reaching out for help was, such a big piece to actually, that's a lot of things we see with people in that space, that beginner space you're talking about. They don't feel like they can talk about it, or that they have anyone that they're suffering silently, right? They're in that space. And when you got to the place where you actually started saying, I need help, and that coming in, that's what brings it in, whatever it is, whatever angel that's going to be there for you to help you through that journey. I feel like that's that beginning stage for people, and that really, turned you around, getting your mentors and different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people feel like they can do it alone, and that's usually how we start. We read books and, we listen to YouTube videos and different mentors out there, but we reach a certain point that will only go so far when we're by ourselves. We kind of call it this cave analogy of like, if you walked into this dark cave and, it's light at first, but you're like taking steps in, the further you get, the darker it gets. And all of a sudden you stop and turn around when it's just around the corner that there's light again, but if you had someone that had been through the cave before and came alongside you with a flashlight and showed you the way, you'd get to that other side, and that's really what a coach is there for, to kind of take you to that place that they've been, because they've been in the dark too,
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and I'm glad that you really expanded on that a lot, especially, again, with direct experience is our best teacher. I learned that in a book, and I wrote it down on a Post-it immediately, because that's why I felt like I was able to be that shoulder to cry on for people. And even if I didn't have that direct experience in a lot of the dark things that they were teaching me, I was still able to hold a really great amount of space for them and make them feel safe enough to be like, okay, there's a lot of shame and embarrassment in asking for help in society, and I'm not really sure why we all get a badge of honor for, sewing our own arm back on at the end of the day. That's something that should really be taken out of it. But taking that really big step to go further than the self-help program that you were talking about, and the analogy of walking through the cave, I think is supremely powerful. But the thing that I want to hit on the most is, how do you make people feel safe to open up that part with you when they're coming in, and maybe they've worked with other people before and they just weren't the right person, right? There was nothing wrong with that program or wrong with that person, but everyone's so different. And I know whether you work with couples or individuals, you have to really cater to all the differences in all of these people. So I believe it takes an immense amount of intuition, and like really tapping in and being like, okay, how do I hold space for this person and help them? But through your program and your understanding, I'm sure that you've met plenty of people and couples that, they obviously approach you with like a wall, and they're like, yeah, like you're going to help me. Okay. But then obviously you show them that you can be safe. So what are some of those ways that you get those people to open up to you?
Yeah, and that's a really great point. We work with a lot of single women, like really high achieving single women that have had many hurts in their life. Mm-hmm. So as a male coach, they sometimes come to the table and it's like,
yeah, right? Extremely triggering.
Yeah, they put the brakes on. And so I think two things really come to mind when you ask that. And the first one is intention. Mm-hmm. My intentions come from my heart space. And I truly believe to create a safe space, you've got to build trust. Mm-hmm. And to build that trust, your intention has to be true. Mm-hmm. It has to be honorable. It has to be from a place of service. And that, for me, is what I have found really brings down those walls to be able to get to the uncomfortable conversations that we have to have at the depth that we need to have them. And not having an ego about it, not pushing to trigger them further. But it's really the intention of having that safe space to give them the room to grow through what they're doing.
Yeah, and we always tell people when we sit down with them, a lot of people feel alone in what they're going through, and we always tell them that between the two of us, there's probably nothing that you've gone through that we haven't been through ourselves personally, or we've worked with someone who has, and this is an absolute 100% no judgments. When we share stories of our own personal trials and tribulations and things that we've been through, and I think that helps people to see that we're not coaching from a space of just education and knowledge gained. It's from experience. And when you have that experience that you've either personally been through it and come out the other side, or you've been able to work with somebody and get them through to that other side, or both, it really helps them to feel seen, they feel heard, they feel like, there's hope in that, and that they really can connect with you and that you understand. And I think that's the biggest thing that really opens up that trust.
And I think, like the cave analogy, right? We walk beside them. We're not
sure what to do. It's their journey, but we're going to guide them and how to go about it in the best way that's most comfortable for them, but to get that growth that they really need.
And I have to say, I think Tony Robbins said it the best. He would recommend us as coaches because we lived it, because we've gone through these things. And as far as coaching on relationships, we see a lot of people in this field who are single. If you're
on healthy relationships,
if you're looking to have that healthy relationship or to have a better relationship, who do you want advice from? People that are living an enlightened relationship, or people that are living in toxic or single relationships? Mm-hmm. And that was another big piece for us to bring our coaching together. To show people that we don't only speak this, we live it. We make sure that our relationship is better today than it was yesterday. And we will make sure that it's better tomorrow than it was today if we're granted tomorrow.
That is very powerful and a really good point to bring up because, direct experiences is great, but seeing people that, you're not perfect every day, right? Which there's still a comfortability in that flawed aspect of, hey, we're still learning, like, we're still students as well, but we learn this lesson and we add it, and then the transparency while you're sitting at the table with them, where you don't like act from a place of like virtue or like on a pedestal or anything like that, is something that I also think would make you supremely relatable to anybody that wants to work with you. So leading into my next question, obviously you're digging deep with these people, you're getting into things they're struggling silently with, or they just never got the right help, never found the right safe space. What are some integration techniques that you have for them to make sure that when they leave the table, they're also not leaving the advice they gave or you gave them at the table because they don't really know how to integrate those new pathways into their lives?
Yeah, we are rewiring their brain to have new habits, right? So we spend a significant amount of time with them, whether it's just one-on-one coaching or we do one-on-one coaching and then they come with us on a retreat. But the time spent, we always tell everyone where there's a portion of it spent building a future, strong, authentic self for this person, right? Someone who has the strength to continue on after they're done working with us, because we don't want to keep you around forever, right? We're very different in therapists in that way. We don't want to have you around for years and coaching you. We want you to be able to have what you want and have the tools that you need and be able to let you fly out of the nest. Mm-hmm. So we're working with you to build new habits, because all it is with people is what's happening in their life that they don't like. There's a series of habits that are creating that, thought habits that are creating that for themselves, and behavior habits, right? So we're taking that and we're reframing it and creating new ones. And once we do that, it becomes ingrained in them. And then when we take them on our retreat and we immerse their physiology in with it as well, that's where the long-lasting change really happens. But there's lots of different tools and strategies that we're giving them that they can pull out of that toolbox at any time when anything comes across their path that they're struggling to, that it's a challenge for them. They then have a new tool to handle it in a new way with a new action than they ever did before.
That's, to get a little bit more scientific about it, as we develop those habits and patterns, our brain creates pathways so that you can do it faster. You can get sad faster. You can get depressed faster. You can get angry faster. And the more we do it through our lives, the stronger that neural pathway becomes in our brain. So the integration is actually during our coaching. They're given exercises, they're given things to practice to not only break down the old neural pathway, but to begin to build that new neural pathway. And as we create that becomes your new habit, right? And so that the integration is actually happening while we're working together. And then when we sort of push them out of the nest, if you will, when they're done working with us, they are integrated. They are already using those tools. They have already built that habit and that new pattern. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't see the old pattern kick up. But with the new neural pathway, we get to recognize it, right? I like to say we realize it with our real eyes, because through our life, we build filters, and we see and we hear these things through those filters. So if we work with people to get rid of the filter, they can use their real eyes to now be present, to really see the thought habit and change the direction in which it's going. And that doesn't have to be a giant step, right? We talk about 1 degree shift. We lived on a sailboat for quite many years, and the 1 degree shift, you're not steering your sailboat staring at the compass. You are cooking, you are sailing, you are having fun. There's all these things that you're doing that you go back to the compass and you look and it's like, oh, we're off course. So you steer a little bit in a 1 degree shift, because over a period of time, that 1 degree shift right in this present moment is tiny, right? It's a tiny step. It's a tiny action that we take. But over a length of distance, over a length of time, that 1 degree shift becomes giant in our new capabilities, in our new mindset, in our new habits and patterns.
Man, you guys are just hitting nails on the head left and right with all these questions. Those are great. Like, I'm picturing the sailboat and everything in my mind. And my husband literally wants to go live on a sailboat and buy one. So now I'm going to tell him that I met 2 people today that lived on a sailboat, honey, and it might be possible. For yourself, I do not have a desire to live on a boat, but that's just me and my water fear I'll eventually work through on my own time. So obviously, working with the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows, that's a lot of energy for you guys to put into other people and also, you know, work through you. So do you have like enlightenment tactics, superb diets, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, Pilates? Like, what are the things that you do to keep your physical vessel in tip-top shape so you're able to be there for all of these people that you work with?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, well, and I want to go back to the we're not perfect, right? You know, we have our lives, and you know, life happens for us all the time, just like everybody else. And that energy can get taken up with our kids, our dogs, our clients, our lifestyle, and the one thing that has always recharged my battery, is adventure and the adventurous mindset. And yeah, that's yoga, that's meditation, that's reading, that's taking time for us, for our relationship. You know, none of us let our cell phones die. Let's be honest here, okay? None of us let that cell phone go dead. And so really utilizing that analogy of like, when we are authentically true to ourselves and we start to feel that energy drain, or we work with clients all week, we make sure to take that time for ourselves and utilize all of the tools and strategies that we teach, to have the benefit of being able to come back to our clients 100%, to give them as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, you know, I mean, overall, we have non-negotiables for ourselves, right? I have mine, Scott has his, for what recharges our batteries. And, you know, it's boundaries within ourselves, that it doesn't matter if it's my boundary that goes outward towards him, or towards my clients, or towards other people in my life, or when I need to take that time. But like he said, we are human. So life gets busy, life gets crazy, right? But like he said, even if it's just a moment in a crazy busy day, because sometimes the day gets away from you, you know, really taking what's one little action you can take. And, you know, for us, sometimes it's just talking at night before we, you know, go to bed. We're laying there on the pillow because the day's been so nuts, and we've had calls after call, and we haven't gotten to do our norm of taking a walk or doing yoga, but to make sure that we take that time to get that moment with each other, to just
connect,
because a lot of times that's the recharge. But it's really, you know, what lights you up. And for us, yes, it's yoga, it's being outdoors, it's nature, and making sure that we get that in as much as we can in between everything, so we can be as much as we can for other people.
For sure. And there's definitely like a really powerful like self-auditing system that I think people build when they start their own like journey back to self, whether they realize like, oh, okay, maybe I overreacted in this situation because I haven't given back to myself enough or taken time away. And I don't think that gets talked about enough, because I know that people have their bag of tricks, right? And then there's almost like a stubbornness to it, especially in the beginning, where you're like, well, I know I could like go meditate or do yoga, you know, just like get my body moving, but I'm going to scroll a little bit longer because I'd rather sit here and do that. And I think it's great that you have the transparency and you're like, we're human, okay? Like we're not going to be like these robotic, perfect, archetypes, because there's no fun in learning from 100% idol like that. Like, I think the people that you can trust are the ones that are transparent with the fact that they have those days, whether you can label them, bad or whatever. But I'm a true believer in, like, sometimes self-care is just not doing anything, and I'm not necessarily saying meditating. Like, what if there is a movie online that you would just like to watch? You don't have to succumb to those cravings all the time. But I had a friend who like overworked himself all the time, and I said, do you know that you have value in just existing? Like, if you just want to lay on the couch for like a whole day and just like watch TV, do you know that you still have value? And until that moment, I really don't think that he did, because his whole life was really based on productivity in his job. And I know that I come from that with the background that I had when I worked in corporate customer service, hospitality, whatever you want to call it. The first time somebody said that to me, I was like, one, I felt like a brick got lifted off me, because I'm like, I have worth outside of capitalism. But I can imagine all of these very like high-powered, high-profile people. I mean, whether it's the supermodel or the CEO or all of these people, I mean, they really come to you and they're like, I have more value than just my job. Like, I'm not my thoughts. I'm not this.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, the high achieving aspect of them has become their identity. It's what they filled their hurts with. It's what they filled their space of not achieving in the other area of life, right? The self-love and the love area that they don't want to talk about, but they're high achievers in this other space that has allowed them to feel good in that area. So it's really become their identity to keep going at it. So it's like one of the first things we come at is like, okay, what do you do for you? Right? Because that's a lot of the core of why they haven't gotten to attract in the person that really can meet them at where they're at, because they don't even know what that is. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing how that can get lost.
So do you find, like, especially when you meet these people, not that I want to break any confidentiality between any of your people, but I've noticed in a lot of people that I met, no matter how like successful they are and say their ego and who they think they are, when you're like, what do you do for yourself? Or have you ever asked yourself, like, you've got the job, you've got the car, you've got the house, the 401k, all that, but have you ever stopped and asked yourself, like, why am I still so miserable when I got all the things that I wanted? And then just like sat back and like waited for a light bulb or a response to hit them, because again, they don't have that awareness at all that there's more than just all of these materialistic findings that we all go after in our lives.
Yeah, and those are the questions that most of the time hit the deepest, right? Like you said, it takes that brick off of their chest. Like, I'm worth something more than that. And, I'm not void of that, right? I was in the film industry for 30 years, and I felt very significant in that, but I could not hold relationships. And it was because I utilized the success that I had in the film industry to cover up the things that I was lacking and missing, right? And for me, that was relationships. So I worked around 100 to 115 people every single day. And those were my relationships. And they ended 3, 6 months to a year. That was it. I did a movie with them and those were over. And then I would have time for me. But I didn't take time for me back then. I found other things, right? I opened businesses. I did all of these things to keep myself busy. So when we ask that question, that really leads us, especially with CEOs and actors and actresses, producers, that leads us into that work-life balance. And without balance in life, you're going to feel the imbalance within yourself, right? There's going to be that dislike of ourselves, or the parts that we tell ourselves are no good or we hate, or right, whatever that inner self-talk is. So it's really opening their eyes to that and allowing them to see, wow, I could take care of me, and that would make my law firm actually run better. I could take care of me, and I would actually be more present on an audition or while I'm producing this film. And what we found is that the more they took care of themselves, the more they recharged those batteries, the more they were able to actually accomplish within their work life.
Yeah.
They definitely find much more of like a flow state, you know, just to be able to like really clear out those blockages, or even like that programming that wasn't theirs in the beginning anyways, that is really blocking them from their highest potential. I know there's a lot of people out there, including myself, like I love the teachings of yoga. I love the study of chakras and all the energy formats and all the things that are around us. But I also really like how grounded your guys' philosophy is. So no matter what your belief is, you're not necessarily pushed away like, oh no, like I have to believe in this sort of thing in order to work with you. I think you have a really good come as you are sense about you. And like you said, there's nothing that you can tell us that we haven't personally been through or worked with somebody at. And I would say it's somewhat lacking just because a lot of the life coaching stuff that I've seen is getting supremely compartmentalized to, you know, over labeling it. But you guys have a really great way of just being super transparent and super grounded. And I'm getting a lot of that as I just listen to you talk and talking about the trials and tribulations before. So I really want to go into your experiences and your clients' experiences when they do these adventure therapy retreats with you, because that just sounds awesome.
They're pretty awesome.
Yeah, the pictures are super cool on your website. I'm like, oh, that looks like so much fun. And I just think like the camaraderie that when people come together in groups as strangers and go through those experiences together, like you might meet like a lifelong friend and you really, you know, have no idea, because you can still go into these retreats and be like, oh,
yeah.
Well, that's
the
people.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of it. And you know, one of the stories that jumps into my head is on one of our last retreats. There's always a very big difference in the people that come, right? We had on this particular retreat that I'm referencing, we had a supermodel, we had a girl that runs an alpaca farm, like who lives just in this, there's like nothing in her town, and the supermodel lives in New York City, and we'll call her the farm girl. The farm girl came down to breakfast in tears, and it was our first day going to the water, like going to a river, to a waterfall. And she was late for breakfast, and we were like, I don't know, 15 minutes maybe away from getting on the bus to go on this adventure. And she came down hysterical, crying. So of course, like everything stops, and it's let's talk, right? Let's have a conversation about what's going on, what's triggering you, what are you feeling? And she said, I've been in my room for an hour trying on swimsuits, and I can't stand myself. And the supermodel stood up and started to cry. And we thought, oh, like, she's empathetic. That was my first thought, right? She's empathizing with this girl. And she stood up and she talked about how she had the exact same experience that morning. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? And these people that have never met, who are from such different lifestyles, that retreat was like 3 years ago. They still talk to each other once a week at least, because it does build an incredible connection to be on one of these adventure therapy retreats and to connect with people at such a deep level without the ego and without the mask of who we think we are, right? That goes away and we all become human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and getting to, I think, again, getting to see that you're not alone in how you think. I think one of the best comments, and we've gotten it from a few people, that they have people when they go home that say, like, what was your favorite part about the retreat? And they're shocked to say, like, I gained a new family. Like, they think they're going to say, like, oh, the waterfall rappel, or, climbing in the jungle. But for them, it really is the new bonds that they get to make with these like-minded people. And the rest is all like icing on the cake, with it. But yeah, that camaraderie, it lasts, and you walk away with new family members. That's how everybody describes it, because it, like you said, it is. You come in as strangers, but only until you land in that plane. The minute you're off that plane and you're walking towards our bus, you've got family waiting there for you, and it immediately becomes that.
That's wonderful. Do you guys plan retreats in like different places, or do you have like resorts that you have specifically picked out over time that have obviously worked and catered to the work that you're doing?
A little bit of both. Yeah, we mainly go to Costa Rica, and in Costa Rica, we're all over the country. And we have different resorts and different areas that we love to go to, because it depends on what we're building in that retreat and what we're looking to, help the people get through, for why we choose certain retreat centers.
Yeah, and most of the time we are in a villa with just our group.
Yeah.
We have private chefs. We have an amazing photographer. Her name's Marcella. Mm-hmm. And the villa experience really allows us to coach 24 hours a day the whole time we're there. There's no other people involved in our experience until we're outside the villa. Mm-hmm. So it makes everybody feel very comfortable. Mm-hmm. What we like to say is, as much as we get our boots dirty every day, we come back to luxury. So we have private chefs, we have masseuses, everything is taken care of. There is nothing we don't take care of for the client. We are a full service. That was the joke on most of the retreats, is doesn't matter what retreat it is, clients have never met each other, and it's like, man, you guys are full service, because we really do cater to make sure that what you're getting out of that retreat experience is the new you, is the tying in that neural pathway with the physiology.
Yeah, we don't want people to have to tie up any of that time with taking care of the little nuances, so we want all that time to go to their growth. But we do also do retreats in Bali, and we're looking to expand into other areas as well.
2 of my bucket list places is where you're going to do retreats, so that's wonderful. Costa Rica is so pretty. That was what I noticed most about all your pictures. I'm like,
it's magical.
How magical it would feel, like no matter what you're going through anyways, you're just like, how can I be mad in a place like this? And then
I always say, it's like if Alice in Wonderland and Jurassic Park
came together
and merged, take away the dinosaurs, but it's like everything's bigger and better. The leaves are giant. Walking around, the butterflies are like this big. Those of you that can't see me, my hands are like a foot apart. They're huge. It's beautiful. It's a magical place.
Do you have any favorite stories that you would want to share from your retreats?
Many. What are you looking for, like client transformations or funny things? Or
do one of both, just so we can kind of get like an inside feel of what it would be like. Because I'm living vicariously through everything that you guys are saying. And now that I'm walking through the jungle in Costa Rica with you, let's just expand on this.
Yeah, so I would say for me, it's that moment where we're rappelling down a waterfall, and the water is rushing on the client, and they get to take an action to move through that. And really tie into their life that no matter how much life comes at you, as long as we don't freeze up, as long as we take an action, uncomfortable action or not, that when we take that action, there is growth on the other side. There is joy and happiness on the other side.
Well, it's funny you said that, because the story I thought of was one of our girls who, and you could see it in her eyes. She started out, this particular retreat, we went to a water hole where there was like this probably, 12-foot waterfall that you could like climb up and jump off. And she was petrified to get up and go on the waterfall and do it, but she wanted to. And so Scott walked her through and coached her through it, and she got up there and she did it. And when she jumped off, she was so elated and so proud of herself that she became like the cheerleader for the rest of everybody for the whole retreat, right? Because that was like our first day. And so she became like the cheerleader. She was so proud, empowering everybody. And when we get to the waterfall rappelling, she's in that place and the water is coming on her, and she's, because you're kind of leaning back a little bit, the water gets a little heavy and it's pounding on you. And you could see the fear starting to get in her eyes. And Scott had her, and he had like his hands, and he's looking at her, and he's like, he had her eyes, and he's looking at her with his, and he laughed with her, and he was like, remember the waterfall. And you could see in her eyes, like she went from fear to like being able to get down and do it. And same thing, she got to the bottom of that, and she was like through the roof excited, but it's watching those transformations and seeing it in their eyes where they go from like it's blocked off, like, oh my God, I'm in fear, and they're somewhere else, to all of a sudden they come back to present and they realize they can do it, they can step through it. So I think seeing her kind of go from the scared, I can't do it, to like, I got this and I'm doing it and conquering all of it, was really powerful. And then as far as a funny one, I always think of the sloth jumping on the
zip line.
We went on one of the zip lines that we went to. It wasn't on our group, but the guide was telling us that the group before us, there was a sloth that, because you go along the zip line and you're probably traveling for a good like minute and a half as you're going across, and a sloth jumped onto the line as the girl was coming down, and they had to, like, they stopped. And so the guide had to work his way out on the zip line to get the sloth to get back off the line. And I'll let you tell the part about how he gets it off, because you do it so much better than I do.
So he worked his way out there, and he talking to the sloth, like, come on, you've got to go. And he's got this little leather glove on, and he's kind of like, come on. And the sloth sort of took a swing at him. Those of you that can't see me, I'm doing slow motion.
Slow motion sloth. They move it like micro speed. They're so slow.
But they eventually got the sloth to jump back into a tree with no injury or anything like that to anybody or the sloth. But it's, the wildlife is amazing. We play with monkeys and sloths, and you see toucans and macaws and like
wild.
4 or 5 different kinds of monkeys. And I don't mean like you see them 100 feet from you. Like, they come to the villa. They come to see us. They come every morning. They come through and they wake you up because the jungle comes alive, and it is loud and impressive.
Man, you're really selling these adventure retreats just wonderfully. So my next question would be, am I allowed to sign up for this retreat, or do like I sign up for like a coaching service with you, and then as I work the program with you, if I want to do the retreat with you, I can? Or how do I go about going on a retreat with you guys?
Yeah, so it works both ways. You can just come on our retreat. It depends on really where you're at and what you're looking to get and how fast you're looking to get there is what we, again, we would suggest different things to different people, because everything we do is customized. Even though you're coming on a retreat with a group of people, it's still customized to you and the growth that you're going to get out of it. So it could work both ways. It just depends on the person. Yeah.
Great. So then your website that's linked down below, that is how I will get a hold of you for all of your relationship, adventure coaching, one-on-one coaching, just to know more about you and see the pictures of the adventurous retreats we're talking about. I know you sent me a video that I'm going to post too on the socials to give people more of an inside look, but is it a form that I fill out where you guys just kind of assess like how I basically need to be spoken to, or kind of see like what I'm looking in you for?
Yeah, most of the time, the system that we work through is you would fill out a form, we would contact you, and we would get on a Zoom call and really make sure that we're a match for each other. Because look, like we said before, we're not perfect, and we're not a match for everybody. And there are people that we will turn away from coming on our retreats or our coaching program, because you have to be in a space ready to grow, ready to take this on. And so generally the Zoom call is where we get to sort of know each other a little bit, and then we would give you our sort of plan for you at that point.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think you guys did a really good job of definitely explaining Costa Rica. Like, whoa. The pictures in my mind were great, but I really do love what you guys are able to offer individually and together. My last question, since we talked about like you work with a lot of single women, so obviously a male as a life coach is kind of triggering at times. Do you do one-on-ones where like if she's more comfortable working with a woman or a guy wants to be with a guy, like do you give in to those, or are you like, we come as a pair of coaches together, we work with both sides of you? So if somebody like just wanted to work with her, or just wanted to work with you, is that something that you would turn people away from because you do come as a pair?
So, again, it's customizable. Most of the people that we work with, we do only pair up. There have been some instances where we would work with the male or the female first, and then bring us together in it. But it really, I am the most honest man that women are ever going to meet with no agenda. And we make that really clear. And because they're triggered by men and they're going to have relationships with men, there's no better way to understand a man's mind than from a man's mind. Nancy's a great coach, but she is a woman. So she has a woman's mind. And I know we're going to get flack for this, but we are different species, everybody.
Yes, we are. It's okay.
And we really encourage people, even when they're feeling that little bit of hesitancy, to get on with both of us. Because once they're on, we really haven't had, even the people who were very guarded in the beginning, we do have a way in which we speak to people, and in the moment of pulling that out of people, we're able to make them feel comfortable enough to start to bring down that wall. And it's a very gentle way in which we go about everything. So again, Scott and I are really good with kind of like passing the baton back and forth in our coaching calls for what we can see is needed in the moment. So if we notice things or a wall's coming up and she's not hearing because it's coming from a male's voice, he can tell it, and he backs down, and I come in and I take over the majority of the call. So there's ways that we do it that really have been effective for those people that even felt really guarded and nervous to kind of come in and have a male perspective. So we really haven't had many people that weren't or didn't want to work with both of us at the same time.
Well, and our past clients that were really triggered by a male now get to have the best relationships that they've ever had with men, including their fathers for most of them.
Yeah, we have about a 40% success rate with people, as far as we worked with them and now they're in healthy relationships that are lifelong life partners.
That's wonderful. I mean, I definitely know it's a trigger in the women's collective to come up and be like, oh, another man, but it's definitely something I just wanted to pull apart because again, I like being the guest driving in my car listening to this episode who could potentially have that trigger, and it's nice to, understand how you're able to provide that safety for them to work through that. And it's not necessarily like, these are my stipulations to work with you, you know, or vice versa. It's really nice that it is customizable and it is very versatile.
And we do create a very easy, safe space for people.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, like I said, I'm definitely going to have your website down below for anybody that either wants to join you in Costa Rica or Bali or any of the other retreats that you guys plan on hosting in the future, or would like to work with you in adventure counseling, relationship counseling, whatever they would like to do. I highly recommend just to follow your social media and keep up with you. You know, that's my favorite thing to promote besides people's work that I interview is like, dude, just go follow them and keep up with them because they're doing retreats in Costa Rica. Who wouldn't want to see that picture on their timeline? Wouldn't it just make you happy seeing like all the wildlife and the plants and all these awesome strangers smiling together? I mean, I know I'm going to, so I definitely encourage everybody to do it. But before I introduce the music, I usually like asking, and you can choose which question you want. Is there a book that you would recommend to people, either beginner or above, or is there a piece of advice that you would have for somebody who is really starting that journey back to self?
So for me, the things that come up are The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Great book. Anything, Tony Robbins. And as far as a piece of advice, I would say change your story and you will change your life.
I'm going to second that. It's really,
pretty good,
true.
Right? Yeah. No, I think that's wonderful. I really appreciate you guys coming on the show today and just sharing your experiences and honestly just being so transparent about it. I think that's what makes it more valid and authentic and trustworthy. So I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
We want to, you know, anytime we're on a podcast, we love to give the audience a little special gift. So for your audience today, we wanted to give you guys what we call an adventure assessment. So it's kind of to see where you are, you know, stepping out of that comfort zone in your life, bringing play into your life, and how you can start doing that more so you can start getting some growth outside of your comfort zone. So we'll share that with you, and we'd love for you to be able to give that to your audience.
Absolutely. I'm happy to hook anybody up with any self-help. Go find yourself, find your purpose, be awesome in your human form program. Yes, that's wonderful. I appreciate you sharing that. And again, I want to thank you guys so much. I picked out a track today from one of my favorite musicians. His name's Neovi. He also does my theme song. We're email best friends is what I think of it. But he has a song called Feel Better, and it's got a really good beat on it. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for our audience. And guys, don't forget to scroll down, hit the likes, hit the links, and definitely check out Scott and Nancy and live your best life. Thank you guys.
This is the Hoosier Media Network, your home for podcasting.